Get up. 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. Always make sure the mic's working. Hi everyone. Thank you for coming along. This is the third component of the series of Q&As that we're doing or have done. One of them is up online, which is Meet the Producers. So if you enjoy what you see today, you can jump onto our YouTube channel and have a look at that. Unfortunately, our marketing one isn't because we weren't filming at that stage. You can just take it down a touch, Tom. Thanks. Thank you for coming to our introduction to comedy, do's and don'ts. Now, on the panel today, we have three comedians. One, and the first person I will introduce is Bron Lewis, who's been in the Brisbane scene for probably the last 18 months. She came up just before COVID, and she's this year's co-winner of Raw Comedy 2021. Yeah, come on up. Come on up. Grab a seat. Now, our second panellist is Greg Sullivan, who I can honestly say was probably one of the first open micers that we ever had at the Sit Down Comedy Club, and that's 30 years ago. He'll tell you probably the exact date that he started on, but he's been through the system that we've got and probably been thinking about comedy most of his life. Mr. Greg Sullivan. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Fiona McGary, also a long-running comedian in the Brisbane and national scene. She also has been running probably for the last 15 years? 12 years? I gave her a few extra years, so, you know. COVID doubled everyone's experiences. So she's been teaching classes here. A number of her students have gone on to do very well in raw comedy, and quite a number of people are playing on our scene at the moment. So please, welcome to the stage, Fiona McGary. She's lost. Come on, you've come out of that curtain so many times.
We won't bite. I have come out of the curtain. Good evening. Good afternoon.
Now, you've all got microphones in front of you, so don't be scared to use those. So today we're sort of going to go over a number of things with regards to, from my side, what a producer's looking for people that are starting out in a stand-up room when they're doing their first shows and all that sort of stuff. These guys can fundamentally talk about the experiences of being a comedian and coming through our open mic scene, doing their 5 minutes, 5 minute spot, 10-minute spot, 20-minute spot, the different types of ways of dealing with those lengths of time. Because different amounts of time means you need to treat them in different ways. You can't treat a 5-minute spot like a 20-minute spot or a 1 hour show. They're all very, very different. So what I'm going to do first before we get into questions and talking about that stuff, I'm going to get each person to sort of introduce themselves, maybe talk about their first gig and one experience. We'll keep this tight and quick so we get through it, but we'll start with Bron.
Yeah, hello. My first gig was in Melbourne, and I brought all my friends, and it was everyone thinks that was a terrible idea, but I rigged the system, and so everyone laughed. So I thought comedy was easy, and then I was like, oh, this is so fine. And then for about a year, I just bombed flat out. And I was like, what? Remember my first gig, guys? And then I just had to work really, really hard, and that was so it's coming up to 3 years now. Yeah.
Thanks, Bron. Greg?
My first gig, I think, was in 95. I did it at uni.
It was with Vince Sorrenti, from memory?
Yeah, it was Vince Sorrenti at my uni.
In Toowoomba.
Yeah, and that would have been in 94, actually. It was in 94. And Vince and I went to LA together in 99. So that was, at the time, seemed like a really long time. But looking back, I went, wow, that was quite a short run. But yeah, I did my first gig for Fedele at Bob's famous comedy cafe at Breakfast Creek Wharf.
Which is now Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, it's now Mercedes-Benz, yeah. A little bit classier these days. I I started, my first paid gig was on 31st of December 1995, which was a really quick run, looking back. But it was very lucky because the competition now is so immense and the level is so high. I feel really sorry for you guys.
It's
It must be really shit to be starting now.
It's a good and bad thing. In the era when Greg started, or even some of the people that started before Greg, we had one spot a week for an open micer. And that was in our Thursday night show. We put one person up, and that was it. And now we have, I think it's something like 75 spots a week. So your opportunity to get up is really good, but back then your opportunity to progress was a lot faster. But the reality is, the one thing that's never changed is the competition, not with other comics, but with yourself. Because the reality is, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing in stand-up, it's all about what you're doing. Your only competition is yourself. But I'm going to jump and go to Fiona.
Hi, first gig. I actually don't know. It was in 2000. I don't know what month but it was at the Gold Coast Arts Centre. And it went well, which was good, because I suspect if it didn't, I wouldn't be here today. I have the utmost admiration for someone that does it for the first time and takes it further than date and returns. Like, I'm just,
Yeah.
So that went well, and I think it's better now, to be honest. The same. I'm a bit sort of with Fedele because there is more open mics.
The standard's a lot higher.
I think the standard's higher, but you've also got the opportunity to fail. Like, we don't mind people having bad gigs if they're trying out new stuff. It's when someone keeps doing the same old thing, they do the same spot every week, and they don't actually learn the lesson that the universe is trying to tell them to learn so they can progress on. You know, there are people that have been open mics for a very long time and they don't move past that point. There are people that get to a 20-minute spot and they hit a glass ceiling. There's a number of glass ceilings as you travel through, because sometimes people sit in a place of fear and get scared about trying new material because they like the aspect of the adulation and the laughs, but with comedy, when you're trying out new material, sometimes it's going to fuck up, and you've got to be willing to accept that and sit in that. Was it a question? Yeah, call out here, because he's sitting back there and the mic might not get to you in time because he's dawdling. Here it is.
Oh, I can talk quite loudly.
Oh, but this is so people at home can hear.
Oh,
Because we are live streaming this as well.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah.
My question to you is this. Everyone's very supportive. I've done this twice, so has my colleague here. A few of us have done it a couple of times. And everyone's very supportive and goes, you know, keep on doing it. At what point, I mean, obviously, 3 years, you said you bombed for 3 years. At what point?
Oh, no one. And that was during COVID.
Oh,
so like it's neither here nor there.
you had a baby and there was like more people in the house. and stuff.
Yeah, for me.
So at what point do you say to yourself, I'm shit at this? Because you can measure laughter and you don't want to be over-supported because your ego can surpass your ability to be funny, and really someone should tap you on the shoulder and say, get out.
Okay.
So when's time?
Well, let's start with Greg this time.
Just give up then. If that's what you came here to hear, just stop. No one cares. If you're looking for a reason to stop, you don't really need one. It's so hard to do at a professional level. You really have to have a burning desire to do it. And I've had friends who are really talented, like really funny, and just gotten to the point where they didn't feel that they were getting enough out of doing it as to justify the effort they were putting in. And when I was young, I used to go, oh God, no, you should stay because, you know, I don't have any friends and I'll lose a friend if you stop doing shows. But I just realise now that, yeah, it's a big effort. But I'm always encouraging because, you know, it's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah. You mean encouraging people to quit? That's what you said?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and to do it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Just an encouraging kind of guy.
Yeah.
Well, he'll support you in any way.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'll give you a lift home if you want to quit before the set. I'll do your spot. I don't care.
Yeah. But I think what Greg said is like if you really love it, it depends on why you're doing it. Because if you're doing it for like to make money out of it, I guess you just have to keep working really hard to work out what the tricks are. And if you keep bombing, so like if I did actually bomb for a whole year, that would hurt so much. I'd be a wounded mess. But I do. I reckon I would. I just ask people like,
But
what is wrong
you
with
saw the
that?
growth from the bombing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I get why that... And also because I watched why other people bomb. And I was like, well, that isn't funny because of this. So I watched other people fuck up. So when I did that, I was like, oh, I see why that is the reason I'm fucking up. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
If my advice
cool.
is, if you have a bad show, call your parents and say, I've just had a bad show. And if they say, don't worry, we love you no matter how you go, quit, because comedy's not for people with parents who love them.
Very supportive parents.
Is the question
Hi, Mum.
actually how long should you keep going before you should just be honest with yourself and say, this is not for me?
I think there's no time limit.
That feeling
Is
never
that
goes
kind of-
away.
Yeah.
It never goes away.
Know when to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think in the reality of stand-up, the trick is that you never actually get good at it, because you learn something, and then if you look at what you did this year and you worked for a whole year and you look back going, oh my God, the amount of mistakes I used to make, I'm so much a better comedian now than I was a year ago. That happens all the way through your career. You become more comfortable. See, like in the past, I would not look at anyone until they had a minimum of 50 to 100 shows under their belt, because the reality is it takes a long time to get comfortable just being on stage. And I'm not going to judge someone's material, because part of the process is getting up on stage and finding your voice. And the thing is, if you're not learning from the lessons of getting up on stage and hearing your inner voice or hearing your inner truth, because as soon as you connect with yourself, then you can connect with the audience. But an audience knows when you're lying to them or if you're putting on a mask. So if you're pretending to be something you're not, they know. Yeah. Always. Do you want to add, Fiona? Not necessarily to what I said, but with regards to time.
More than if your whole set is sucking. I sort of, it's generally more bits that might suck. But I'll give, like, back when I was starting, I'd give a bit of material, like maybe I'll let it have 6 runs, and then I'll go, no, actually, it's quite shit. Just let it go, Fiona. There's nothing there. It's just in your head. But let it go.
Can I add something to never throw material away, because sometimes in 10 years' time you'll have the ability to be able to make that bit of material work.
Correct.
And you've gone back.
I have. I've gone back to old bits.
I think, because most comedians are mentally ill people go, maybe I'm a comedian. And a lot of people, and that's fine, I'm mentally ill, it's fine to be mentally ill. And if you're watching this, you probably are mentally ill as well. But it's a very specific kind of mental illness. And you don't know if you've got that right kind of mental illness until you try. And
it's called human. It's called human.
Yeah, Patton Oswalt says people become comedians in order to control the circumstances in which people laugh at them. And a lot of people find themselves being laughed at in their younger life, and they think, okay, well then I must be a comedian. But the problem is a lot of folk, generally non-neurotypical people, and I'm not neurotypical myself, are not able to understand and do deliberately the things that make people laugh at them. And they are often, sometimes they'll go well on stage and sometimes they won't, but they're kind of unaware of why they go well and why they don't. And that's kind of that can be a bit of a bummer, you know, like, because it's like those first couple of episodes of the singing competition every week for those people, like, you know, yeah. So, are you one of those people? I don't know, but it's a good sign is if you can turn it on and turn it off. If you can turn it on and turn it off, then you'll probably be a professional comic. If you have trouble turning it off, then you might be a professional comedian, but you'll have a hard life.
and people won't want to tour with you.
Yeah.
It's one of those interesting things where, in the context of comedy, having that understanding of how you're working as a performer, having that bit of yourself outside watching what you're doing, and going, okay, why aren't people laughing at this, and posing those questions. Some people, they walk off stage and they always hear people laughing. Oh, I had a great set, and everyone else in the crowd's going, what the fuck was that? You know, and it's being able to hear what is actually happening. And one of the things that we've done here, and some of the people here have probably experienced it, we video every show. You can't hide from the laughs in that particular show. So we send footage out every week to everyone that's performed at the club so they can watch it back. And that's, I find that's some of the best learning. One of the things, and I think one of the fundamental things, especially in the open mic scene, that people need to remember is their social contract. And the social contract that you have as a person that wants to do stand-up comedy is with the audience. And your contract is to entertain them through humour. They're not there for your therapy session. It's okay, if you make it a therapy session, it better have jokes and a punchline. Because then you're fulfilling your social contract. Because every time you've got to think about the material that you're doing, is this entertaining the people that are coming to see the show? And another personal frustration of mine, I'm going to throw this in now, is when you have a small crowd of maybe 8 or 6 people, and people have a go at them, going, oh, it's just you guys? Where it should be, oh, thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting us. And now I'm going to give you the best private show you've ever had in your life, because you've taken the time to come out and watch us. If you have those things in your mind about looking after an audience, and I'm going to pose this question to the panel, how do you deal with your audiences and treat them? And do you believe in this social contract that I've proposed?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you guys would have seen it already as well, is the comedians who, like Fedele says, who goes, oh, and it's their ego talking. They're not actually like angry at the crowd for being there. They want the audience to feel like they're used to a much bigger crowd. They're like, this, you know, like, oh, I usually get way more than this. Oh, this is, and then they have to like kind of pander to their own ego to get through the first bit. And then if they don't laugh, they can then continue telling their ego, it's actually, it's not my fault. Like I started this, it's your fault, and the people who didn't turn up. And so they make the audience feel like shit for turning up. They make the rest of the comedians feel a little bit like shit for being there and giving their night to the gig. And then they have a shit gig themselves, and then they leave and they're like, oh, you know, like I think someone said Nunda before, because sometimes Nunda has a massive crowd and sometimes it has a really small crowd. But almost always the people who are there are like a really beautiful crowd, and and a lot of them come back every week. Like there's a few tables that will be there every week, and if they always have just one person each time they're there say, well, this is a bit shit, isn't it? Then they're like, well, fuck off then. Like, go do a different gig. Like, this is my night. Like, some people get babysitters. So I've got 50,000 kids, and so for me to go for a night out, like it's you know, with my partner, we have to organise a babysitter. We have to pay for that babysitter. You know, we're spending money at the bar. We're trying desperately to like each other, and then we have so it's like a big night for us. And this is just my personal story. So when I see a comedian just like poo-poo the gig by saying this is a bit garbage, guys, I'm like, well, this is actually my night. So fucking dance, monkey, dance. So I reckon it's really disrespectful to every single person that's there, even the bartenders who are standing there when you're like saying this is a bit shit. It's like, well, like, we're here too, dickhead, you know? So if you pretend that this is if you invest in that gig, and I've noticed it, notice when really good comedians do that, they invest in it, they speak to people, they get people a bit closer, they make mates with them. Some people, like I did a gig once where I just went to it, Denise Scott was the MC, and there wasn't very many people in the time because it was COVID, and so she learned every single person's name, and then she came back and she was like, oh, Greg, classic Greg, you'd say that. And she didn't know what Greg would say, but Greg was like, fuck, Denise and I are mates. And then it was actually one of the best gigs ever because it felt so nice, even though it was tiny. So I reckon it makes a huge difference by just respecting the gig and respecting the people there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's... no one gets into stand-up to be nice and positive, or very few people do. Like, most people get into stand-up to say exactly what they want and fucking show everyone how cool they are. And that's exactly why
you're really cool, Greg.
Well, no, actually, I got into it to make a friend.
And meet girls.
And meet a girl. Any girl. And it worked. What's the number one reason I do this? These days, money. Because I have no other marketable skills.
Because you want to make people laugh.
Oh, yeah, and that. Yeah. No, I assume I'm going to make people laugh. But look, if a comic who's been working for 30 years comes out on stage to a small audience and makes a joke about how they've played big gigs, and it's true, and they do it once, then it can be funny, because they're sort of dealing with the reality of the situation. But if an open micer who really hasn't done anything bigger or better comes on and shits on the room, well, everyone's going to go, well, who the fuck are you? And they'll be right. But like, I think in every set you get one moment of honesty about the situation. Like, you get one, oh, this isn't going well. And usually that'll get a laugh because you've broken out of the set that you're doing that they don't like, and you've acknowledged reality. But the temptation is then to go back to that, but you get one. You get one, this is small. You get one, this isn't going well. And
not necessarily in the same gig.
No, not
but
necessarily.
Sometimes it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Fee?
Yeah, I'd probably just respect your audience. They're people. They've come to see you. They've come to support comedy, full stop. It's never their problem.
Yeah.
Even if you want it to be. Like, I could have made it their problem last night, but I'm not.
Strange crowd.
Yeah, they were just a bit skitsy, but it's just never make it their problem, because you'll just never learn. If you always want to go, oh, they were shit, I'm the legend, you won't learn.
And sometimes people think it's going really well. And then if you're pointing, you're like, this is big shit, isn't it? And they're like, oh, fuck, I missed the point then. I thought...
Well, and they're having a nice time.
Yeah.
Like, some people literally don't laugh out loud. They just don't.
Yeah.
I might do some... Like, I'm kind of a bit like that myself. But I'm still having a great time. But people are like, oh, you're not... you haven't wet your pants. I'm like, no, well, it wasn't that funny, but I'm still having a really nice time. So, yeah, when the comics constantly... And it's a very good point, this, just once... oh, this is not going well, because you see people open micing using it because they realise it gets a laugh and they go, oh, keep that one. It's not a bit. It's not a bit you want to keep, mate. It's just something that's in there. So, you don't want to fall on it. You see people really leaning on that as a tool to sort of get a laugh. It's like, no, learn some other skills, not that one.
Yeah. I was doing a corporate gig with Fred Lang once, and afterwards he said, they don't know how well you normally go, because I was apologising to them, because I was used to doing sit-down gigs with a few hundred people in the audience and going great, he pointed it out. Yeah, they were having a great time, but I felt like I was sucking. Yeah. And, you know, so, excellent point, Bron.
It's like the famous adage, you're only as good as your last show. In stand-up, last show doesn't matter. It's the show you're doing at that moment, because an audience has no reference point to what you've done before. What I tell a lot of people is, if an audience is quiet, it means they're watching, and they might be just laughing with their mouths open and not making noise. You're dying is when they start chatting and no one can hear you because they're chatting so loud. That's when you're going bad and you need to change something. Okay.
Sorry, I'm an ex-journalist.
That's okay.
Sorry. So how do you get honest? How do you get honest feedback? Because everyone can pat you and go, "Good on you. You've done good on you."
I think the first point is giving yourself honest feedback.
But we all can do that. We can all have an ego. I can stand on stage and do Shirley Temple, but I may not be funny. I want to know whether I'm funny or not.
I reckon it's funny.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, watch. Well, here's a pretty Aspergery answer, but watch the video back, and
if you hear laughs
and work out how many laughs you're getting per minute. Work out how many big laughs you're getting per minute, and then watch someone else's video who's done as many gigs as you, and see how many laughs per minute they're getting, and then quit. Because you can always quit.
When I started, I found a person who had a similar, who I thought was really funny and had a similar kind. They weren't. So when I started when I was 33 or something like that, 32, whatever. And and everyone who was
really,
you can get fucked. They were all of the people that I was gigging with, these freshies were all like 19, 20. I don't know where the fuck they got the confidence to do that. Fuck them, so bad. But I was in the room, and it was just all these like really young blokes who lived with their mums, and it would just talk about their dicks. And I was like, I can't relate to you guys, and I can't ask you what. I can't bounce ideas off you because we're just in different worlds. So I finally found someone who had a similar sense of humour to me, and he was around my age, and we just teamed up. We went to each other's gigs for a bit. And I would say, like, that bit is going really well. That there's something in that. It's just you haven't worked it out yet. And it was just finding a partner in crime. And it might be a few people. And it's also how you receive feedback as well. What's your name? Did you say? Sorry. Yvette. Hi, Yvette. So I don't know how you take feedback, Yvette, but so there's some people who will take feedback in a really creative way, where they will stand by their jokes. So you'll say, look, that's a bit funny, but like racist heaps badly, like don't do it. And they'll go, yeah, but it's not that racist though. And like my mates think it's funny, so. It's like, well, that's not just taking feedback then, is it? You know, it's being a dick.
Ego gets involved.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got to be very humble. It's like, be brutal and tell me how I can be good.
Yeah.
Be funnier.
Yeah.
It's a fine line, because you want to be brutal to a point, but which you do, but it's also, you need an aspect of nurturing with it.
You can nurture egos for 5 years and they're still bad.
Oh yeah, no. Trust me, I've dealt with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to be on the stage in 5 years going, I'm all right, the crowd sucks, but I'm great.
Yeah, well, you just...
Well, you won't be, though, because you won't be asked.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, you don't get gigs. But it's I think it's asking advice from people, from people. Like the people
It's
who've been
being open
around
to that
for a while.
advice as well.
Yeah.
It's being receptive. It's like, you know, there are times people come up to me and go, have you got any advice? And I'll say something to them and their eyes glaze over and you go, I'm saying this to you, but you're not taking this in any way. And why am I wasting my time telling you? You know, whereas there's a number of people coming through at the moment who ask advice. I give them 1 or 2 notes, and then next time I see them on, they're trying those things. And I go, okay, that's good. Okay, what's the next challenge I can give that person? And see if they can step up to that.
Of the hundreds of people I've forced my advice onto, 2 have listened, and one won Raw, and the other one came second nationally. So, you know, like it, you know, if like when they came to me and said, "Oh, I've got this really good sex joke," I go, "Don't do sex jokes in Raw. They don't want it. They don't want it from you. They don't want it. No one wants a sex joke from you, but Raw especially doesn't want a sex joke from you." And they listened, you know, and the advice is there. You can really get a long way ahead of other people because, like, even though you look at someone like me and go, "Oh, fuck, what a tired old 90s comic," and you're right, but I've made all the mistakes that you're about to, and I've avoided a couple of them, but you know, like, if you just ask me, I'll tell you what not to do.
I think
pretty simple.
Janti, do you have a...
Oh, you knew my name. That's very special.
Of course, hi Janti.
Hello.
Lovely to see you.
I was going to make a comment, but it's probably gone too far now since I can't even remember. That's the problem with being my age. You just can't remember back to 5 minutes ago.
Sorry, we've all got that problem.
Yeah. I was going to say, and a comment to, I've forgotten your name already. Yvette, is that I got into stand-up because I just wanted to have a go and have fun and learning all the time and getting the feedback. I think it's when you're not having fun, and I think being an older first-time comedian I've got a lot of life experience about how to treat people and just going along, and everyone's got a joke. Everyone can turn something everyday life into something funny, and I've been doing the Jolly Roger nearly every week. And that is the first time I got there, and it's all backpackers, and I'm thinking, fuck.
Oh, that's a gig. Oh, what a relief.
Sorry, stand.
I thought it was a euphemism. I thought it was Urban Dictionary stuff.
No, the Jolly Roger with Daniel, and because I met Daniel at a charity event, and so I've been going there nearly every week, every fortnight, and it's a crowd. First time I walked in, I thought, fuck, how am I going to be funny to 19, 20-year-old backpackers? And they weren't making a big noise. But afterwards, all these boys, young boys, were coming up and saying, "Oh, I love you, Janti, you're so funny." And this Italian, I made an Italian joke about my IGF, my Italian girlfriend. And he comes, "Oh, Janti, oh, is this so funny about the Italian? I just love that." And I said, "Really?" No one was really laughing. Oh, we was laughing inside, you know. And so that's the thing.
That's a perfect example of what we're saying. Often you'll get that feedback after the show because they haven't been vocal, but they've had a really good time. And that's the sort of stuff that you have to take on from the audience.
Middle class audiences are the worst in terms of laughter. They're very concerned about what other people will think of them, so they don't laugh as loudly as, you know. Bogans are great audience members because they don't care, and very, very wealthy people don't give a shit either. It's just those middle ones you got to watch. Just keep some puns for those fucks.
So, the next thing I sort of want to talk about, because we'll move on from audience, we've had a bit of a discussion. One of the things that I find really important, and it's one of the things that even some of the old school comics are really bad with, is stagecraft. Stagecraft is an important thing when you're performing on stage. We were talking about respecting the audience, but there's also that aspect of performance. You're on stage performing, and it's having a respect for that stagecraft. I've come from a theatre background, so I've got an understanding of how stage works. I know to hold the microphone in front of my mouth. If you hold the microphone like that, it doesn't pick you up properly. See how? And then if I turn it that way, you can actually hear me better. That movement makes a massive difference. The amount of people that drop the microphone right down and you can't hear them, and then the sound person's trying to fix it up so the audience can hear. So having a perception of what things I need to do to make my performance better, having a respect for the stage. The amount of people that jump up on a stage, they look like they've just come in off the street. If that's not your persona, you know, it's like I have to say one thing, when I first saw Bron, she was heavily pregnant. And
How dare you?
She put on so much weight. I saw a big change, Bron had her baby, and then there was a moment where it switched, and she had this stage presence that wasn't quite there before, and it was like a transition.
Yeah, my clothes
I
fit
thought you
again.
were saying that you looked homeless.
I refuse to buy maternity clothes because it's a temporary stage of life, okay?
True.
So
Yeah.
thank you very much for that criticism.
So
No,
here's a trap for young players, especially if you're a deadpan comic or you're a quiet person.
Think Stephen Wright.
MCs are nearly always way louder than you're going to be, because the MC has a lot of experience and they're trying to hype the crowd up. And the people who get a lot of MC work tend to be energetic people. When I MC, I pretend to be energetic. And so when you come on, the mic's going to be set for the amount of gain that the MC wants, right? And you're going to need a lot more headroom, and it's not going to be there. So if you're a quiet person, you have to be really conscious of getting really close to the microphone, yeah, especially at like here at the Pato, you've got people who actually know what they're doing, who can adjust the levels. But at most open mics, it's going to be set for the MC, so you have to really work with what they've got. Yeah.
Fiona,
Just took a lot
any-
longer to say essentially what Fedele said earlier.
Yeah, just keep it close to your mouth.
Yeah, keep it close to your mouth. And it's going to be bright on stage.
Yeah.
It's going to be bright.
And that's a very good point. Don't worry about not being able to see people. One of the worst things is people doing that. Because as soon as you block your eyes, the people in the audience lose connection with you.
And if you are going to wear a hat, make sure it doesn't shade your face, unless part of your thing is that you shade your face. But it shouldn't be.
Sorry, I came over the top of you, Fiona.
Sorry, Fiona.
Yes, hat's bad. Can't see your face. Don't ever drop the microphone.
Oh, yeah. Especially if it's a radio mic. We
Don't-
hate
they're-
you.
Like, they're really precious. Unless, like, you're going to buy the venue a new one.
Bring
is that
your
like
own
the
microphone.
mic drop?
As in, literally, bang.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because there's a little thing in
They're
here.
really expensive.
There's a little thing in here called a diaphragm, and they pop, they break. And
Yeah.
even if they don't break, they'll dent up the cage around it. These SM 58s or 87s or
58Bs, I think.
yeah, SM 58s are pretty rugged, which is why they're the industry standard microphone. But I've still, like, when you do the mic drop, even if you're doing a great set and then the diaphragm busts, I've seen it happen on two occasions, and then the next person, the MC has, like, if you want to do shit with the microphone, buy your own microphone.
Yeah. They are
Yeah.
they're very expensive.
Handy hint if you're ever doing a gig with a radio mic, always check that they put fresh batteries in before you go on. Because the amount of times a radio mic dies on stage when a comic's doing their show, and it always happens at the most inopportune moment. So always make sure your sound guy has put new batteries in. Don't ever be afraid to ask for certain things to make your performance better.
Can I talk about what the clothes for a
Yeah,
second?
because you like.
I did. I changed. I changed it. Yeah. I would never wear. Like, this is fine what I'm wearing now, but I wouldn't wear it on stage. Like, this is what I would wear in, at home. Fine. On stage, I just wouldn't wear this anymore. But when I started, this is kind of what I wore because, again, I found my ego was like, if I don't show that I'm trying, everyone will think that I'm not. Like, it's just effortless for me. Like, didn't think about this. Oh my God, have I got a mic? Crazy. Okay, fine, I'll just say some things. And then it's like, oh wow, if a joke lands, it's like, fuck, didn't even try. And then I sail off into the night. But I want people to know that I've worked hard to get to wherever the fuck I am, even if it is a gig to 6 people. So this was a conscious decision, is I wanted to start wearing clothes that I would wear perhaps on like a bigger stage. And this was personally, this doesn't suit everyone. Some people will have like what their attire will be. Like, I know, like, I always, when I talk about this, I think about Aaron Gox. Do you know if you don't know Aaron Gox? So he will wear, like, he's a real scruffy comedian. So a lot of his, it really suits his attire, what he's
He's
wearing.
got a mullet, he wears thongs, sometimes he's in shorts. but it suits his character.
Yeah, but then there'll be other people who will just turn up in like tracksuit pants, and blokes wearing tracksuit pants it's absolutely just never a good idea. You've got something that we can see, and it's gross. And just like if you're wearing something, even if you're like, oh, I just want something casual, make sure it's clean, make sure it's ironed, or if you look like you've just found the clothes in your boot and put them on, then people are like, wow, they've given again. You've not really put any effort into this night or this gig that I've got a babysitter for.
Sorry, did I stop you finish?
Yeah, I'm still talking about my babysitter.
If your character and your act and your jokes are that you're a shambolic stoner and it works, then dress like a shambolic stoner. And if you're lucky, you might be the one shambolic stoner who has a career that year. But you will only be booked for the gigs that suit a shambolic stoner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you want to make a living out of, like if you've got like wealthy parents and you don't give a fuck, then just do the art. But if you want to make money from comedy, I think it was either Fred Lang or Steve Allison. I think it was Steve Allison said, dress as well as the average audience member wherever you're going. Go to the gig, suss it out, try to dress as well as them, unless you're a deliberately low status act or you're a deliberately high status act. But, if I'm getting paid $3,000 for 20 minutes work, I put on a suit because the people who are paying me $3,000 for 20 minutes work generally wear suits. I've got a friend who has a real objection to wearing a tie. He will never ever wear a tie, but he's got a nice Nehru jacket, which is just a fucking loophole as far as I'm concerned. But he looks smart. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, hey.
You'll go.
Cut me off again, I'm going to stab you.
I'm so going to get stabbed.
And the only other thing I would add to that is you must be comfortable in what you're wearing. So Bronwyn looks heaps hotter on a stage than I do. Like you go, oh, Bron, that's a nice, tidy outfit.
Not just on stage.
Get fucked. That's 2 stabbings in 1 Q&A session.
Yeah.
Your Honour, I didn't mean it. They were annoying. See, now I don't know what I was saying. You can't cut the ADD chick off, mate.
Bron looks hotter on stage.
Oh, yeah. But I look neat, is how I would describe my stage presence. I look neat and tidy. Corporate, I'll put on some pants, some slacks. But once, do you remember this time, Greg, at Woodford, when I bought that outfit?
Oh, yeah.
I thought I'd girly up on stage.
Did you wear a skirt or a dress or something?
It was a fucking nightmare. It went pear-shaped because I was so uncomfortable, right? And it happened once before, early on in my career. I'd had a social outing, like after the gig, and it was a formal kind of thing, and I went, I'll just wear that. And I've tarred it up, and I've rocked up with this full-length black skirt, split right up the side, big knee-high, like I looked $1 million. And I had never been on stage without having a pair of jeans, a T-shirt and a pair of Converse on before. And first, this is how I got to stage. I fell onto stage. Yeah. The boot lace got caught in the other boot. And I thought, I'm not doing that again. So I never wore a dress on stage ever again. I was like, fuck them. They're bad. It just wasn't comfortable. Yeah. You probably worn more than me. Just be comfortable is the point, because if you try to stretch yourself, it won't work.
I think the handy hint is dress what shows who you are or your personality. It's that thing of don't wear something that you wouldn't normally wear. Unless you're going to a gig that you do need to wear a suit or you've got to go black tie. That's a different situation. But you can also make those things suit you by doing little things. But the reality is the more you know yourself on stage and the more you represent who you are on stage, the more the audience connects with you.
Also, try to dress in a way that won't get you beaten up or stabbed in the car park after the show. It's
very good
It's an
advice.
actual consideration.
Is that a thing? What's the thing?
Do we have another question down there?
I do. I know what you're saying. I actually wore an akubra for my first time at Nunda, and I thought, this is really cool. And I realised that I shouldn't really wear an akubra because it's not something I wear every day. My question is this, the sex thing. So my icon would be like Jim Jeffries. I know he's inappropriate, but when it comes to sex jokes, obviously we don't talk about certain things, but you know, where do you draw the line on sex jokes?
Can I address this one first?
Sure.
Because me as a person that runs rooms and deal with a lot of open mic venues is a number of people watch someone like Jim Jeffries and they go, he's doing a 5-minute spot and he's talking about this, and this, and he gets away with it. I reckon I can do that. But the reality is you're watching a 5-minute spot that's been drawn out of a 1-hour show that he's built a relationship with the audience there who've also come in with a relationship with him because they're fans of his. So that gives him a certain amount of kudos. And the reality is we tell people not to do certain things, not because we don't want them to do it, because they don't have the ability to do it. It's the reason why we say to people, don't say cunt. It's not because we don't want you to say it, it's because you don't use it properly. It gets used as punctuation. It's like, a lot of people don't realise, and a number of you won't know, but I think virtually to the day, 40 years ago, it was in 1982, that Rodney Roode got arrested on stage in Brisbane for saying fuck. And then every other show he did in Brisbane in that tour, it was like the Blues Brothers. There was like a whole stack of cops standing at the back of the room waiting for him to say fuck. And that's the thing, you know, 40 years ago, fuck, you couldn't get away with it. Now it is punctuation in someone's speech. The reason why we tell people don't do this sort of material is you don't have the ability to do it. Jim Jeffries has 25 years experience. Jim Jeffries has been punched in the face for the material that he's been doing. Okay? And he was one of the lucky guys that got punched in the face and became famous for it. Because 1 million people saw him. And as Greg said, you know, there's one person that will become famous for that thing. And then there's a person that becomes famous for being the stone, or the person that does the doll material, or whatever it is. It's, you know, it's Steady Eddie. You know, when he started out, it was all about his disabled jokes. Steady Eddie now very rarely talks about his disability. You know, and it's that thing of how you evolve and progress. You as new comedians are going to talk about bums, poo, wee, all that sort of stuff. We know that because that is the first step. It's just like babies. You are the children of comedy, and you actually have to go through this process and make those mistakes. People will help you through that and try to get you past it, but if you don't get past it, then people will move away. Yeah. So you can do any sort of material. The darker it is, the funnier the punchline has to be. If you're doing 5 minutes, you've got to think of it like a sprint. In a 5-minute set, you want people giggling or laughing every 15 to 20 seconds. When you start moving to bigger sets, then you can sort of stretch things out. But what you want to do, and especially for something like Raw, you want to leave the audience going, oh my God, I can't take any more. I've just run a 100-metre sprint and I'm in pain from laughing so hard. But you can't do that for an hour. No one can sustain that amount of laughter for that period of time. An example from my personal self, I went and saw Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright did an 1.5-hour show. And that's an 1.5-hour show of one-liner jokes. Oh my God. 45 minutes into it, wow. I was done. Yeah. I had enough. I can't sit through anymore. If he'd left it there and then, I would have gone back and seen him again and gone to see the other 45 minutes he did and be willing to pay the same amount of money. Leave people wanting more is just another secret. Sorry, I've rambled on too much and I'll be quiet now.
No, I agree. Look, I love dirty comedy. I love doing dirty comedy. I've done heaps of it. I was talking to one of the Wiggles once, I won't say which one,
Do you wear red?
And he said, because I'd just done a really dirty show, and he said, "Oh, I really loved your show." I thought, "Oh, fuck, I didn't expect the Wiggle to dig this." I said, "Yeah, I thought that was a bit much." And he said, "Yeah, maybe the bit where about ejaculating in your own eye." And I just went, "I just made a Wiggle say ejaculate. That's fantastic." So I love dirty comedy, and I love doing it, but like famous dirty comics are everyone in, as Fedele said, everyone who goes to see that dirty comic is in a relationship with them. Like, if you think about the levels of intimacy you have with someone who's in a relationship, you're much more intimate. You know, you'll accept much more. Like, I did that dodgy joke about Fiona not being hot before, and it was okay because we've been friends for 25 years. So,
and she knows it's not true.
Yes, and she is hot, so it's all right. But the relationship that you have. So I am not a famous comic, but I am like a very skilled pickup artist, and I can inveigle my way into the audience's affections most nights, and I can get away with saying stuff. And you might be able to too as a new comic, but you probably can't. And comedy is so hard. It's hard doing simple comedy when you're new, that it's better to get really good at doing simple comedy than it is trying to do really hard comedy straight away.
Yeah. In Raw, that just happened.
Who won that?
That's all I wanted to say.
Nationally.
No, there was one comedian who I thought she was going to win. She was so great. Her set was amazing, like from the start all the way up until right near the end, and she made a really visceral fisting joke that made the whole
as opposed to the intellectual fisting jokes.
Yeah, but it was like I could see it, I could feel it. It was real. It was so full on, and 1,000 people in the audience all reacted to this, and that's what she wanted. She wanted people to react to this, and the judges did not love that. And when in the review, so she got runner up. And in the review, the reviewer said, such a great set, so clever, obviously like a professional, but the one joke about fisting we could have done without, and a moaning reaction from an audience is not the same as a laugh, and it's easier to get the audience to moan at a gross joke than to laugh. So it was that. To make them go, oh, and then you get like some people laughing and nudging each other, or like people like nervously laughing at your rank joke. But if that's not, it's harder to get them to actually laugh, I think.
There's always a time and a place.
As an MC, I never do sex material as an MC, because there's a progression. You can go from whimsy to sex, but you can't go from sex to whimsy. Or if I've seen it done, and I have done it, but fuck, it's hard, and it's placing an unnecessarily difficult burden on the closing act. It's just rude. It's just rude. If the closing act has been working for 15, 20 years to get a set that is clever and entertaining and great, and you come on and do 15 or 20 minutes of really funny, hilariously good sex jokes, then you'll kill, and you'll make it really hard for that act. But you're not a better act. You'll go away thinking that you're a better act, but you're not. And it'll be a real shock and surprise for you if you ever get to the point where you're the closing act. So just think of it like the actual sex act. There has to be an introduction, there has to be flirting, there has to be foreplay.
And consent.
implied and explicit consent. And also shock only works once or twice, you know.
We've just got another question over
Just
here.
wait one sec. I just want to add to what Greg's saying, and then we'll come to your question. And I've had a number of conversations with comedians going, but the audience don't understand me, and what's going wrong, and da 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 da. The thing is, you have to see what level the audience is at, and if your audience is here, but the material you want to do is there, you have to actually work to get the audience to you. You can't expect them to be where you're at. So you've got to cater some of your jokes to bring them across to your mind frame, or how you're selling those jokes, or whatever it is. And once you bring them across, then you can go for it. It's like someone like Jim Jeffries. He's already his audience walks in and they're already where he's at because they've already watched a lot of his stuff. But if if he's going to a cold audience that don't know who he is, I've seen him do it in places where he's just popped up. He has to bring that audience in, and he eases them into what he's doing.
By the way, Doug Stanhope and Jim Jeffries are absolutely terrified of their own audiences. Like, they cross the road so they don't have to deal with them, because that's the people that you can go out there with that attitude of, I'm going to say the worst thing, but you'll end up with a room full of people who want to hear the worst thing, and that can be awkward before and afterwards. But they are better and more successful than me, so what the fuck do I know?
Jonty?
There's so many questions I want to ask. It's like, I want to ask this question. But one of the questions, I've been doing it now for a couple of months, and I've just developed and evolved my little 5-minute set, and it sort of changes and, ebbs and flows. But what I was wondering is, how do I know, and the audience is always a different audience, but how do I know when's a moment to introduce something new? Like, because I find that I've got a 5-setter, but it doesn't always work out the way. I can be easily led by the crowd, and
That's a good thing.
And a joke will come up. Like, I made a joke. I always say, is there any mob in the house? Any blackfellas here tonight? No one puts their hands up. I go, any people of colour? And then there's probably a couple of little hands that come up. And then I made this joke about spray tan. And I've never made the joke before. It just came out of my head, and I said this joke, and they pissed themselves laughing. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to laugh. But when do I know when to keep changing and evolving my set? I guess that's what it is, because I'm doing another gig this week, but it'll be another different crowd, but it might be the same comedians that I've sort of seen,
Don't worry about comedians seeing your act again.
Yeah,
Okay.
never worry.
Never worry about
Don't worry about the others. Okay.
Never ever play to the comedy crowd, because it will take you away from the
In
audience.
10 years' time, they will have quit, become teachers, or overdosed. Like 95% of them.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what I'm hearing your question is when do you know what material to put in
Yes.
To grow?
Yes, thank you.
So my take is, and it's tricky because you can get bored of it yourself, but when you're starting out, your aim is to build material. So sort of a good way to do it is add one, drop one. Because if you just keep ditching, and I see open micers do it, they ditch the whole 5. And it's like, no, you've got to, because we're building, right? You start with 5 to get 10 minutes, to then have 20, to then MC and headline. So you're trying to get lots and lots of material. And if you keep just ditching it because you're bored of it, one, it will never get good. You'll never really fine-tune it. But, yeah, you have to sit with that. That can be somewhat a little bit tedious for yourself, but you'll get that so good, and then you can add one. So that's kind of the best thing that worked for me, was add one, drop one.
Best joke
So you
first.
keep like 4 minutes and maybe add a new minute, each, and then you're just sort of building over time.
With the drop one, don't necessarily drop it forever either.
Oh, yeah, I don't mean
I
drop
just,
it like
I just
not
want
use it.
to
Yeah.
make it clear that if something isn't working, write it down, put it away. Because that becomes your reference material in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Especially when you're first starting out, there are going to be it's the most plentiful time for coming up with material. Write every idea down because it becomes a reference material for you for your whole career.
When I say drop one, let me just clarify that in case you thought I meant don't ever use it.
Yeah.
I just mean you've got 5 minutes when you start on stage.
Yeah.
So when I say drop, I just mean you'll be using it later.
Yeah.
Put it
So
away.
just
on hold.
use it next time. Yeah, that's what I mean. Right?
So if you're a standard white guy, standard straight white guy, and the complaint that I hear from a lot of standard straight white guys is, fucking why does everyone else get so much, you know, why are they getting spots and laughter and stuff? And the answer is that if you're not a standard white guy, this is my answer, this is a standard white guy answer. If you're not a standard straight white guy, chances are all your life you've had to do a quick joke which acknowledges why you're not a standard white guy, and just to make everyone else fucking relaxed about the fact that you know what's going on. If you're skilled, so if you're a hugely fat person like I have been all my life, or if you're you know, if you're differently abled, or if you're gonna cause tension in a room, you have 10,000 hours of breaking that tension really quickly, and there's a lot of standard white guys who are 25 and they can write a really good joke, and they love comedy, but they have no concept of how to write that first great joke. And that's the advantage that non-standard people, who it turns out are actually the majority in the world, that's the advantage that they have, is that they know how to write that great opener. And the opener is so important. Your opener has to be quick and funny and set up who you are. It has to acknowledge what everyone in the audience is thinking about you as you walk up onto the stage and as you address the microphone. If you can say, hey, this is who I am, and I know, or fuck you for thinking that, or anything that just sort of, that uses the weight of whatever they're thinking, then you get license from the audience to go into the stuff that you're thinking about. And when you're the eighth act who comes on and says, I know what you're thinking, probably don't do that. But you know, your opener has to be a great joke, and it's a special case, and your closer has to be a great joke, and just switch out the middle. Take the pressure off yourself. Get a joke. Get a laugh. Like you'll see headliners come out and fuck around and do not much and do new material at the start. That they know they've got 38 minutes to dig themselves out of that hole. They're trying to make it hard for themselves because they've been fisted so much they can't feel anything, right? They are standing in the absolute comfort and security that they have on stage and trying to force themselves to come up with new material. You're not that person. So get that good joke and fucking get it out. And get that first laugh and then assess.
Which is the way that you start your relationship with the audience. I think Greg was the one I mentioned earlier. It's you've got to create that sense of intimacy. So you're opening up with that opening joke, that's letting them in, and you're starting that relationship. Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah.
No, all good. Okay.
And then you fuck them.
Yeah, just over here, Tom.
I don't know what's happened to him today. What's happened to him today?
I was just wondering how you guys would go about like finding your voice. I feel like that's like probably the biggest thing I'm struggling with now.
Well, that I think I've said to a couple of people on the panel and a hell of a lot of other comics, stand-up comedy is the truest form of personal development. If you really got to look at yourself and find your true essence. And until you do that, you won't speak in your authentic voice. If you pretend to be something that you're not, as I mentioned earlier, the audience knows that you're lying. So it's that thing of look inside yourself and go, what sort of person am I? Why am I doing this? And I think when you start finding out who you are, you'll find that your natural voice will come to the fore. And I've spoken in code, and I hope that makes some sense.
A really smooth pebble doesn't think, fuck, how do I become a really smooth pebble? It just gets all of its rough edges knocked off. And you'll find your voice by having everything that doesn't work not work. And you just have to go out and do thousands and thousands and thousands of gigs, and your voice will come out. So...
And I reckon it's also not ignoring, like if something gets a laugh and you just personally it doesn't feel right to you. Like you could go into Logan, to a room in Logan and make a joke because you're like, these are all like pretty like dodgy white people, and then you make a racist joke because you're like, I reckon you're going to like it, and then they like it and you're like, but like personally that feels shit. There's going to be, like, you aren't going to develop as a comedian from that, even though you've made them laugh for that one moment, and your voice is then going to be confused. And then there's probably going to be some people in that room who'll be like, that was, like, what a shit thing to say.
Unless in your heart you really are a horrible racist, in which case there's millions of horrible racists in the world and you'll probably have a very lucrative career, just probably not at the sit-down comedy club.
I tried to do like sex jokes at one point, like because people say that's like, I don't know, it's cool, and I tried to, and I tried to do it, and it just felt so, I was so uncomfortable, and I think that people knew that I was uncomfortable, and I just don't do them anymore.
Audience always knows.
It was
they
a
always.
yucky time for me.
It's that thing of if you're a computer nerd and you try to be a rock star, the audience knows. It's because it's not authentic. There's nothing behind that, and there are a lot of comedians that are oppressed rock stars. You know. They want to be playing guitar in front of a big giant crowd, but found out that they can do stand-up better than they can play guitar. Yeah.
Sorry, I was
breaking the song.
I've done lots of research about comedy, pathetically, and Ricky Gervais said you need to be authentic and unique, and obviously you all are. But at what point? At what time did you go? No, I feel like I'm in my own niche. I feel like I'm this person.
You can't put a clock on it. It's like people come up to me and go, I've been doing this for a year, and it's like time is irrelevant. Because the other thing too, and Greg mentioned it before, the whole 10,000 hours. If you've jumped up 100 times and you've done 5 minutes, and that's taken you 6 months to do less than 3 hours of stage time, 10,000 hours is a hell of a lot of time. The thing is, you can't put a time frame. It's you learning the lessons. If you learn a lesson, you can fast forward through it. I don't know if I'm making sense.
There's no time frame on success. There is a time frame, a very definite time frame on failure.
I just want to add to that, finding your voice, because I've noticed a very big change in the industry, like since I started, because it's very old, is that everyone's in a rush. Like everyone wants to get famous. And when people come through my course, and that's one of the first things that come out of their mouth, how long before I'm famous? I'm like, never. Just never. Because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You can't... But that was never the case. But everything sort of changed with social media, and there was reality television, overnight stars, right? So people kind of went, I want to be the overnight star now. But you can't fast forward stage time. You can create lots of online stuff, that's awesome, but when it comes to performing, you can't rush that.
You can't fake it.
You can't fake it. You can't fast forward it. You can't do it. And I'll just keep finishing this sentence.
Sorry. You can fake it if you're a woman,
but it really does take time, that finding your voice is what I'm saying. Like, to be perfectly honest, I was probably 10 years in, really, before I went, and now I feel very comfortable. But I didn't have 75 open mic spots that I could do a week, right? So it took longer. But it is part of the confidence. Now, you still, I still am terrified, not terrified, but still edgy before gigs, and I'm still nervous. That never really goes. But there's the confidence with it, and I have the skill set. And with the skill set and the confidence comes more of your voice. But people really seem to be in a rush. But that would be my greatest advice, is just be patient with yourself.
I think people that lose that fear before going on and get an aspect of complacency.
Oh, it's bad.
I think that's actually really dangerous.
I have my worst gigs when I've been cocky.
Comedy will slap you.
Yeah, I'm so good at the paddock.
Yeah, I think everyone always feels like they're not writing enough and that they've been passed over. Like I have a couple of friends who I think of as famous, and they'll sell out like 600-seat or 1,000-seat venues, and I open for them, and I'm getting $500 to do 10 minutes. I'm fucking ecstatic, it's great. I'm happy as. I turn up and I go, "How you going?" And they go, "Fucking Carl Barron is selling so many tickets." And I just go, "When are you going to be happy? You're making 30 grand tonight. What?" But of course, they wouldn't be at that stage if they were ever capable of feeling happiness. But like everyone, like I used to, and fame is like, I used to wake up in my penthouse apartment that I rented for too much money and drive to work at a radio station past a billboard with my head on it. And quite often in that time period, I'd go and do TV. No one has any fucking idea who I am.
No.
I felt important briefly, but no one knows who I am. The only reason I'm here is because I haven't been an absolute cunt all the time, and the times when I have been a cunt, Fedele's forgiven me. That's the only reason I'm on this stage. Like, it's just don't be a cunt. Just don't be a cunt.
I think the stage time though, when I started, I had that thing where I was like, "Oh, I've got kids." You always find an excuse to not do it. Like you're like, "I'm tired today. It's a free gig. Oh, look, I've tried to get there. Look, it's just not a nice day for me. I'm not going to go." And then I spoke to a lady in Melbourne called Nellie Thomas, and she won Raw Comedy 400 years ago, and she said, she said to me, "Don't do open mics. They're a waste of time. They're just full of young blokes, and you are a mum, and they're not going to get it, and you're just going to go, and your jokes will not be funny there." And I was like, thank fuck. It was like my ticket away from open mics, because they hurt. Like sometimes they really hurt. And I was like, yes, I don't have to do them. And I was like, but what do I do? She was like, just practice in front of the mirror. That's it, just practice in front of the mirror. And that worked for her, because she ended up winning Raw, and I think that was like her third ever gig, fuck her. But I tried, and I just was not getting any better. Like I was like, fuck, I wish that had worked for me. And then I remember someone saying, probably was a Fedele, "You need to do 4 billion gigs or whatever." And I was like, I just don't know if I have the time. But I had to have a real conversation with myself, with being like, no, the audience don't give a shit if I've got kids or not. They don't care if I didn't want to drive here tonight. They don't care if all of these things. But this is my life, and this is what I actually want to do. Then I'm going to have to turn up, and I'm going to have to do the hard gigs, and I'm going to have to do that hard slog of getting better. And I've still got so far to go, because I've only been doing it 3 years, but it's the hard gigs that teach you far more than the good gigs. The good gigs just like blow your skirt up a bit.
The good gigs are the reward.
Yeah.
If you go well at a good gig, that's a bonus. It's going well at a hard gig. And one of the things, and I see it quite a lot, because during COVID, I went to a lot more open mic rooms, and I was running sound and doing that sort of stuff. And it's a bit disappointing when you see someone who's jumped up, they've done 5 minutes, and they've taken off because they haven't done well, and they don't sit there and watch what everyone else does. I think Bron said it, and I think Greg might. I think everyone on the panels said it. Some of the biggest lessons you learn are from the people on stage, and the thing is, I've sat there, and then 2 or 3 acts in, someone's caned it and it's worked really well, and then the next person dies in the arse. And you go, what did that person do different to everyone else that made it work? And these are the questions that you've got to pose. And every every audience is different. You can't go in going, oh, that worked last night. It's irrelevant because it's a new audience. And you can get the same audience the next night and the material won't work. It could be exactly the same audience because the thing is, you don't know what's happened to that crowd that day. Okay, it's Friday. They've rushed to get to the gig on a Friday. You know, they've just finished their big day at work and, you know, their boss has been on their back or whatever it is, and they get there and they're stressed and it takes them a period of time to relax. A Saturday night crowd, they might have had all day off and they come in there really relaxed and I'm up for a big night and I don't have to work on Sunday, so this is my party night. You just don't know what the variables are in that room that night. So you need to be present in that moment and assess the crowd on that night. Don't judge them on a previous crowd from another night.
I've had a few people say to me, oh, why would I stay and watch this local headliner when I can go home and watch all the best acts in the world on YouTube? I've had several people say to me, why would I stay and watch insert name of local headliner here when I can go home and watch the best acts in the world on YouTube, which sounds like a really good point. But the difference is that you can see this person that you have no respect for do a really good job in front of the same audience. And it's that ego deflation that causes you to become better. When someone that you don't think is good does really well, you have to be, like, if you're in any way a reasonable person, you have to kind of go, well, what did they do that I can't do? And and if you blame the audience, like I've done shows in China and Papua New Guinea, I've done shows for rich people, poor people. I always try to look for the shared humanity between us. And if you can't find that, then maybe this isn't the job for you. Or, equally well, the shared disdain. For certain things. Yes.
When a joke or bit doesn't quite land, like, can you acknowledge that? And is it that same rule of, like, you got the one chance? Because I've seen a lot of people do oh, sorry, it's a new bit, multiple times in their 5 minute.
Do it.
The worst.
I hate
The worst.
Great question. I love that.
Yeah.
I hate when comedians say if they they might acknowledge just one bit, or they say at the end when it's just gone fine, they go, "That's all I've wanted to try tonight, thanks." And you're like, "Excuse me, were you trialing on us? I got a fucking babysitter." Have I mentioned I've got kids?
My other pet hate is, what am I going to talk about next?
Oh, yeah.
It feels like they're not prepared. I know it's the equivalent of
Yeah, and hey everyone, how you going tonight? Fucking tell a joke, cunt. Hey, how you going? Like
the first guy can do that one.
The MC. The MC can do that. Hey everyone, how are you? But everyone else, like when you're the fourth person going, hey everyone, how you going? It's just 15 seconds of when you could be telling a joke. And also it kind of shows that you're so self-absorbed that you haven't seen the first three people. Yeah. Yeah,
and that also leads into if you are watching the whole gig, like if you are, like even if you can't say the whole time, fine. But if you just turn up for your spot and then fuck off, you've missed, and then you try and do, and this happens a lot. You're like fifth on, and you haven't been there for the start, and then you go in and try and do some crowd work, and you ask the same guy in the front row what he does, and he's like, I've just covered that, and everyone's like, oh, okay, he's not been here, and then you look like the idiot, and they're bored of you instantly, and then you also might not have, if they're like, oh, I'm like a gynecologist, and then you try and riff off that. It's like, no, all the jokes have been done, idiot. Like, get up. Like, just if you expect to come in just for your bit, then you can't expect to do crowd work.
And why are you doing crowd work in a 5 minute spot? Like, honestly, I mean,
get good at punchy.
Just write some jokes. Jokes are good.
Yeah, write jokes. Yes.
Sorry.
Leading off kind of what you're talking about with etiquette at gigs, is there other things that you look for when you, like, it could be like etiquette on the night, or it could be like part of their performance. What are the things you're looking for when you go to put people on?
The overriding rule that I say to everyone is be easy to work with. Like, as an example, we do ocean liner gigs. So 6 comics jump on a ship, they're there for 3 to 4 days, and the reality is we look at people that are going to get on with the other people. You don't want to be on a ship with someone that you go, oh my God, do I have to be with this person for 3 days? Because it's not fun. You know, sitting in a touring bus or in a little minivan for someone that's in your ear telling you jokes for 6 hours straight when you're driving between gigs is not fun. So be easy to work with, have fun with people, and, you know, be able to... I think really what I'm saying is be able to work with people is one of the big rules. Be aware what other people are doing.
Be on time.
Be on time is a really good one.
So be on time.
Stick to your time. Oh my God.
Don't ever go long.
Don't ever go long.
Never go long.
I did it. See, these are all things that I've done, by the way. All these mistakes I've made. So, like, I went long for ages, and it's just fucking terrible. Luckily, most of the comics who saw me go long have died of overdoses since, but there's a high attrition rate. But it hangs around. Like the hatred you feel as the closing comic for someone who's going long before you, you think that you hate someone now, but you just don't. And the hatred you feel as a promoter or a room runner when someone's going long and all of the staff are hanging around, just don't go long.
There's one of the things that's happened over 25 years of doing shows and stuff, shows used to be actually a lot longer. We used to have 3 brackets in our shows. And people would, I would say it was like a post-Expo 88 thing. People would go out later, but COVID has even accentuated it more, where people, you hit 10 o'clock, they want to go home. What's happening?
Brisbane people are obsessed with Expo 88.
I'm so... Seriously, I'm obsessed with Expo 88.
Brisbane came alive.
Brisbane
Good
did.
memory came back. I was like, oh, Expo.
Brisbane was fun. But what we used to do is we had 3 brackets. We would do, you know, some 5 and 10 minute acts in the first bracket. In the middle bracket, someone would do 20 minutes. And then the closing bracket would be the headliner act that would do 35, 40 minutes. So a show would run between, like, would finish anywhere from 10:30 to 11:15, where now we finish at 10 o'clock. And by 10 o'clock, people are tired. And what used to happen was the person that would do the middle set, that used to be the golden spot. Greg, you remember everyone would talk about
so good.
The golden spot, because
You thought you were a genius. I thought I was.
And
everyone did. Turns out only I was a genius.
The amount of comics because that middle spot was the perfect moment of the night where the audience wasn't too drunk, they weren't too tired, and they were up for it. If you couldn't kill in that middle spot, then you should not be doing stand-up. And that was my going rule. But what would happen is that person would kick ass, and then the guy who would be closing the show, because everything's sort of stretched out a bit longer, they might have did an extra 5 minutes, and that headliner would go on, and they'd go on late. And they would struggle because the audience get tired, they're a bit laughed out. And the crazy part was that the person that did the middle bracket going, mate, I should be headlining. Well, I blew him away. And I would have people come up and say that to me. And once someone did that about 3 or 4 times, they go, yep, not a problem. Okay, we're going to put Greg Sullivan in the middle bracket because he normally headlines, and you're going to go after him. And they would then get the experience of what it's like to close after someone that's done a kick-ass show, because
is that why
that
you
closing
did that
spot
to me?
is really hard. That's how mean I was. That's what I would do.
No, I cried.
Because it's that thing of you don't go over time. You need to respect the person that's headlining, because as a performer, and I've spoken to a few comics about it, you got to look at what position you fall in the night of the show. I had a chat to someone the other night going, you were first up and you did a come in your face joke while people are eating food. There's a time and a place. Think about what material you're doing when you're doing it. Don't be scared to change your act around. You know, that will work for you when you're the second last act on a night with 14 acts. Yeah, that might work then. But be aware of where your spot falls in the night as well.
When I did the improv in Los Angeles, we had 17 and a half minutes. That's a really fucking specific amount of time. And you know, when you do TV, or I don't know, TV was like the internet only live, and like you would get like 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and if you're doing a big showcase show, you know, like the Melbourne Comedy Festival Gala, you'll get 3 minutes, or they'll say, okay, you're doing 4 minutes, and then just before you go on, they say, oh, look, you need to do 3 minutes 40. And if you do longer than that, then you don't get asked back. That's the thing about show business, is you're never aware of the gigs that you don't get.
And the reasons why you don't get them.
And the reasons why you don't. I've got a fairly good idea because I was a horribly depressed drug addict.
So room runners often, more room runners than not will time. Even if it's a really like easy,
get a watch,
a casual gig, they will time it. So I would time my gigs like to the second. I would know exactly how, like, you know, maybe 5 seconds, give or take. But that was, yeah, when you notice when someone goes over, you can tell the room runner gets a little bit edgy and they'll go, great set, great. And then you know, like, they've just been like, never going to ask you back.
When we used to do gala shows at the casino, we would have a computer screen on the front of the stage that would count your time down. Because if every person, like we would have, I think, up to 10 acts. So if every person did 2 minutes over, the show would run 20 minutes late. Mm-hmm. And in places like that, once it goes over a certain amount of time, people fall into double time, wages and all that sort of stuff. So timing has repercussions. It's like if you're doing an open mic room and there's 14 acts on that night and everyone does 2 minutes extra, the show runs half an hour longer. You know, so that extra minute, you know, unless the guy goes, oh no, go a bit longer because someone else went short, that's okay if you're told to do that. And it's listening to the person that's running the room. Another question?
Can I just add something to this time thing? Because it's happened to me emceeing open micing the last couple of weeks. As much as you don't do too long, don't piss off just because you're not having a good time. And I saw it happen probably at least 5 acts did short because they weren't having a nice time. So, I mean, you can do short, that's fine, but if it's for the reason that you're scared and you're running away because you're having a bad time, you've actually got to sit through that a little bit. Like, because you do learn skills within itself. And I had a chat to who was doing the sound, they said, oh, it's happening a bit. And I go, plus you make us have to go out and film.
Can I just add 2 more things real quick? One thing, don't ever do, don't get pissed and get on stage. Like, even like, you know, 3 beers just to like ease your nerves. It will make you not very good at comedy. And also, even if you aren't pissed and you fuck up, don't say, oh, I'm a bit drunk. Because it's just not, one, it's not funny, and 2, it just never works.
My going rule is, and it's the same as flying in an aeroplane, every drink you have before a show is equivalent to 3. Because as soon as your adrenaline hits you, you get drunker.
If you think, oh yeah, well, I'll have 2 or 3 drinks before I go up, I'll be a bit looser and stuff. Just think, if things go as well as they possibly can and you're doing 2 shows a night, 7 nights a week, you're a fucking alcoholic. You know, like that's... And I haven't drunk alcohol or used drugs in a long time. I've been on stage under the influence of all of the drugs, accidentally. It's not good.
No, it's
Don't do it. It's never made me better.
You had a question?
Sorry, it's just me again. The 4 of you are obviously very professional and you're very, very funny and you've worked very hard. You're here with us tonight and we thank you. Are you here for the number one reason that you can make people laugh? Is that the number one? I know money.
I don't make anyone laugh.
Money and fame.
Yes, you do.
Money and fame are everything, but
yes, you do.
Is there a joy that, like, you actually make people laugh? Doesn't it feel? Is that your number one reason? Because you're all very funny. You've worked very hard to get where you are.
It changes over.
let's
Well,
start with
changed
Fiona.
for me. Yeah,
Go,
it's
Fiona.
changed for me. When I first did it, I just wanted to try it, to be honest. It was one of those things that I looked, I saw a bit on telly and I was like, not even funny, I can do that. I'm funnier than that. And then I did it and went, oh, actually, that's not right. Turns out they've got a skill or something, not just me being a lippy little smart ass. So it has changed. It probably was definitely quite ego-driven. Now I don't feel it's quite so ego-driven, and I actually get a shit ton of joy out of making people laugh. Like the energy of the laughter coming at you is pretty amazing. But, I've had some very shitty jobs. And I found this one, I went, oh, this is good. It's a beautiful thing, to be able to do that is awesome, yeah.
The first gig, I walked home after my first gig as a 17-year-old uni student, and it felt like my brains were being spooned into the universe. It was an incredibly good feeling. No, like the birth of my children, just fucking nowhere near as good. Like no drug, and I've done them all. No drug came anywhere close to that feeling. And I've never had that feeling again. But I still do enjoy it immensely. And before I did that, I just had this unfillable hole for attention, and it was just ruining my life. I just had to be the funny person. And if I do it professionally, I can sometimes be normal.
I don't believe that at all.
I can sometimes appear normal.
I just find it really addictive. I've only just started making money from it sometimes, but I just found even the hard gigs, for some reason, get in the car and be like, that hurts so much, but I just want to do it again. There's something that I just knew I was going to do it again. So once you're addicted to it, and you figure out you feel like you're working out riddles. You're like, why is this joke not working? And it could just be you turn up to a gig and you're like, oh, this is going to be shit. And then you add something at the end, or you switch two words around and it works. And you're like, I'm a fucking genius. And that feeling of finally working, problem solving, is lovely.
I come from it from a very different angle, where I like to sit at the back of the room and go, oh, I put this show on and this crowd's laughing. And that's because of me.
Yeah.
I got these people together. We built this. I have to say for myself, probably pre-COVID, I'd lost my passion for what I was doing. And I think COVID actually brought it back. I was complacent. We were running heaps of different things. I was overseeing a whole stack of different stuff. And, this room was being run like colour by numbers. Whereas COVID made me get out of my comfort zone and try different things and invest time in this space to make it a more creative space that, we can develop acts. And, it's the first time in the last, in this last 2 years, it's probably been the most time I've spent with people that have really been starting out. The last 10, 15 years has been just trying to get things done. I didn't even take notice of people until I started hearing about them, or they had 150 shows under their belt, because I just didn't have time. And one reason why we're doing these things is, for myself, I'm trying to give something back and trying to educate people so we can, there's no tablet or rule that you can learn to get better at stand-up, but you can learn the rules and understand the rules, and then once you do that, you can break the rules. And what I feel is people are trying to break the rules at the moment with what we're doing in the open mics without actually understanding what they are. And that's why I've done this particular workshop, is to sort of get it, or Q&A I should say, is to get the ball rolling, get people talking, going, okay, well, how can we improve and get better at this? Because the reality is, if every person in this room gets good at stand-up, it makes my life easier, And if you guys get good, the people above you go, fuck, I better get better. And the people above them go, fuck, better get better. It just pushes everyone to a level to improve.
Yeah.
G'day. It's on.
I just had to tap it.
Okay. That's what she said.
With the time limit thing, in the beginning, would you say for people new, it's better to be safe? Like just when we were having the chat before about you saying, or someone might say, oh, give us another minute because they went short. If you're new and you can't do that,
just say you can't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing is, don't ever, and I think Greg was there, don't ever do anything that you're not happy doing. There was a gig, it was a very early corporate gig, and we were doing it for the Sheraton Hotel, and they were just debaucherous. They were throwing things. And me as a promoter, like, you know, I'm going, oh, this is a corporate gig, and we got to do this. I should have turned around and went, they're not going on until that's fixed. And, you know, and we're talking, this is like 25 years ago. And that's the thing. All the lessons that I've learnt over the last 25 years of running rooms and doing all that sort of stuff, you know, I will send someone like Bron to a corporate gig, but I will go, don't let them do this to you. If they say, oh, no, we're going to put you on while the food's coming out, say, sorry, I can't do that. I'll wait till the food's done and then I'll do my performance, because you're not going to do a good show at a corporate gig if everyone's eating or if they're clearing away plates and stuff. So having that knowledge, it's a mistake that a young comic doesn't need to make, because I've filled them in going, these are the things that people are going to tell you to do, because what you want to do, especially in any gig, is you want a good microphone and you want to be lit. If you can have those two things well, you've gotten two variables out of the way. And the less variables there are, the easier your job is. But don't, it's always better to be honest. It's like, I'll go up to people and go, oh, how did your gig go? Like, I'll ring people and go, I know exactly how their gig went. And I'll ring up and go, how did your gig go? And I'm waiting to hear them give me an honest answer. And if they go, oh, it went fantastic, and I go, okay. One, they're lying to me, or they're not perceiving how well the gig went. Because if I get a report back that someone didn't do well, I'll ring a couple other people that I know that were at the gig and get their opinion. Because I don't take one person's opinion, I try to get a consensus, and then I talk to people and then see how they're feeling about a particular situation. Yeah, I put them in the corner. Look, the bottom line is...
So much trouble.
It's so much trouble.
There's no being in trouble. There's just, you don't get called.
Yeah.
You don't get asked.
Yeah.
I remember the last TV spot that I did, well, the last spot I did for like 10 years, I had a massive joint in the dressing room afterwards. And no one said to me, hey, you know, smoking that massive joint in the dressing room was a really bad idea. No, I just didn't do TV for 10 years.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
Because you become known as the drug... And it goes back to what I was saying to you earlier. Be easy to work with. Be aware of your environment. There's places that you can get away with certain things, and your talent will let you be able to get away with certain things to a point. But if you're a complete arsehole, doesn't matter how talented you are, people will eventually go, oh, I can't work with that person anymore.
Count the numbers. There's 52 Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights in a year, and just go around and count the photos up on this wall, right? And take away all the dead comics in the green room. And just realise that Fedele has hundreds of people who could probably do the job, who call him and send him emails and say, hey, can I close? And they could probably do the job. And there's a confluence of factors of, you know, who's available at what time, and like all sorts of shit that I'm not even aware of.
Who's top of mind at the moment? Sometimes a person will ring me up and go, oh, I need someone for something. You're perfect. I'm going to throw you into this now. And that's happened in situations where something gets cancelled and someone ends up ringing me up and going, I've got a gig for you now.
Yeah.
Here it is.
And just, I used to book rooms and I would call my friends who I thought were hilarious. I'd call them. They wouldn't answer because they were stoned. And I'd call them and it'd get closer and closer to the gig. And then I'd just go, oh, fuck, I'll just call the guy who's less funny but will answer. And they'll always answer. And they get work. And in those times, the guy who maybe, and they were all guys back then, but no, they weren't. The person who answered the phone, just got that, you know, like it's like turning around a tanker ship. That extra 5% of gigs over a period of years just makes you end up with such a better comic than the person who's just that little bit less onto it, you know?
Talent is 10%. Hard work is 90%. It's the hard work that makes you a better comic. Talent only gets you so far. We'll go to that question, but right, the question from the back? It's on.
Just checking. We just got a question from the online stream. So Rob has asked, he's got a query about doing musical comedy, and he said in his 5-minute set, generally only gets one song done in that time limit, and so kind of he feels like he doesn't give enough variety to the audience. So how would you recommend optimising the time and providing variety?
Don't do a 5-minute song in a 5-minute routine. Yeah. The trick is, and the big mistake a lot of people make with musical comedy is they do a proper song. Like they do a song with a verse, a chorus, another verse. Sometimes they repeat the same chorus and go, you know, you're doing the same jokes again. Yeah. Unless the chorus changes and they're new jokes, fine. But sometimes something that's a musical comedy bit can be like a couple of strums and a couple of lines and that's it. So in a 5-minute bit, you got to showcase your variety. You can do a 5-minute song if you're doing 20 minutes, but I would not be doing it in a 5-minute set.
Write a medley. If you can show off the fact that you can write more than one joke and the fact that you have the musical ability to write more than one style of music, it'll be it'll be so much more impressive.
Yeah, it's changing it up.
So much more impressive.
Not just doing the one song, but being able to change it up and have patter. Because if you're just doing a song with no patter, we're going, well, if we're giving them longer, what are they going to do? We need to see, just adding to what Greg's saying, the versatility in what you're doing in a musical thing.
And 5 minutes is a really long song. Like it's a long song. It needs to not be that long.
That'd be shorter songs would be that's a consensus. Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Just right here.
When it comes to like booking shows, especially like the next level up from just like open mic sign-ups, how much is it like pestering people and sending the messages on Facebook, and how much is it like them hearing about you through other people? And because I feel sort of bad just messaging people all the time. So where do you find the happy medium?
Can I say something?
Go for it.
So there's this thing called email, right? Old people do it. And the beautiful thing about email is you don't force people into losing face. So this might be a fuck up because I found this has gotten me a lot of work, and I don't want other people to know this very simple trick. One simple trick. Every week, email everyone that you know who runs rooms with the dates that you're available to do shows. Even if you're available every night, just like pretend that you're not available one night to give the impression that you're in somewhat demand. So just say, every Monday, just say, hi, this is the Monday morning email. Here are my available dates. No need to reply for your records. And it just makes it so much easier for that person. And they're never having to turn you down. They don't ever feel bad about you. You're not on the other end of the phone going, come on, man, fucking...
I've got kids to feed.
You know, it's just a very simple, here I am, every Monday. And you get them into the habit of going, oh, yeah, oh, they've got a few gigs. Oh, it's filling up. Okay, that's good. That's a good sign. And it makes you feel good, and it gives you something to do that is like doing the sets is like catching the fish. This is like mending the nets. And you have to mend the nets.
I think as an established act, that's a really good way to go.
Yeah.
I think for people that are, I think you've got to be open micing as much as you can in as many different rooms as you can. It's like, don't become complacent and do the same room every time, because you don't actually get better at stand-up. You get really good at doing that room. The thing is, it's those rooms that every single, like there's the rooms that we run, there's so many rooms up here, like the scene in Queensland at the moment is really strong, and you've got lots of different opportunities. So jump up as much as you can and have that attitude that we were talking about earlier. Go into that room and make that audience have a great time.
I think, Reid, what you're saying, it's Reid, right? Yeah, I think what you're saying is like it's hard to get to just jump up. It's, what I found it, and this is something you guys don't have, is that I'm way newer than you. So you have all your years of experience, but I have my nut years of experience. And so I remember the hustle, like, and it's still like the hustle is just being, oh hey, like sorry, it's just the worst. And then someone told me that you just turn up to a gig just to say, like, just to remind them. It's that little thing of like, you know, the product placement in ads. And that killed me because I was like, I don't want to go to another gig and just sit at the back and listen to the same person do this. But it's that thing of like, I'm going to turn up to this gig. I'm going to like wave to the room runner. Hi, Finbar. Hi, whoever. How you doing? And I'm just going to sit at the back. No big deal. And then you actually you're there. You've done that thing with Finbar. And then you can see who is he booking? And who is what? Like how many people and if you're struggling with your opener, why was that person's? How quick was that person's opener? So it's actually like seeing this thing of turning up to a gig as like an opportunity to get better at something, you know.
And sometimes when that happens, if you're there and someone hasn't shown up, you get dragged on stage. And sometimes those moments when you haven't had that time to prepare are sometimes your best gigs ever, because you just go, it's just off the cuff and it works really well. So,
what was your name? Sorry,
Reid. Good set the other night, by the way.
Reid.
Good stuff.
Reid. My answer that would be, like, this really is a longevity game. Like, and Greg and I, and same with Fedele. I honestly, I could no longer count the amount of people that come and go, and many just quit too soon because of that. Oh, it's a bit hard, how to this and that, and it's just if you just stick with it and do the basic things, you'll get noticed and you'll get gigs. Well, we've just seen it the whole way through, but it is just. It can be frustrating. Like, it can really give you the shits. Like, I'm sure I didn't like Fedele at all.
The amount of people that were scared of me. The thing is, if we see that someone's learned, like, they have a bad gig and then they take on board some feedback or whatever and they're learning, those people are the ones that we go, okay, they've learned that, what can we test them with again? You know, I tend, like, if I start hearing about someone from like 5 or 6 different people that aren't related because they've been doing all these different gigs. And I'll ring up other room runners and go, anyone shining at the moment? I'll ring up Jake or Josh or whatever. And they go, they'll send me an email with 5 or 6 names. And then I'll reach out to those people. Or we will sit in the office and go, okay, who have we been hearing about that's, doing well or, had a couple of really good gigs, or we saw some footage from, Fiona's course or whatever it is. Okay, we'll test them out. And, I think last week I threw 2 or 3 people up into a Mitzi because they were just in town. And it was just an opportunity for me to be able to see them. But it's that thing of you just showing what you can do. And and being able to do new stuff and not being scared to make mistakes. Because the thing is, we don't... I don't care if someone makes a mistake. It's if they keep making the same mistake. That's what becomes frustrating. That means you're not learning. And then we go, okay, do we give that person more time of ourselves, or do we look at the person and, oh, he's doing it right, okay, I'm going to give that person some time, see if they can grow from that. Because the reality is, if we don't give that person time, eventually they'll wither and die and disappear. But if someone's doing well and you keep feeding them and they keep growing, then that gives us the impetus to keep developing them.
Someone was doing someone was trying to start running rooms on the Gold Coast, and they said, "Are you prepared to travel to the Gold Coast?" And I said, "I've travelled to fucking China to do, like, literally China."
No,
do shows.
No. I'll give you an example from this man. When he was living in Toowoomba and we had one 5-minute spot, he would jump on a bus, come from Toowoomba, come to Brisbane, do his 5-minute spot, sleep on someone's couch, and then or either go back to the the bus station and catch a bus and go back to Toowoomba that night or the next morning.
And it doesn't ever end. In 2012, I'd had 14 years working Capital City radio, and I'd done national TV, and I'd done the improv in LA, and I wanted to do shows in Sydney, and people said, "Yeah, come down and do 5." So I had to drive 1,000 kilometres and sleep on someone's floor to do 5 minutes for people who've been doing... I'd run fucking comedy venues longer than the people who I was showing my 5-minute set to. And I woke up, I was sleeping on someone's floor. I woke up and I felt this sort of bitterness rise up in me and just sort of going, fucking 18 years and I'm doing 5 minutes for these cunts. And then I just went, no, because I've seen that happen to people over and over again. I said, this is a moment where I can choose to be bitter, but it will kill my career and then it will kill me, because I've seen it happen over and over again. So I went and did the 5-minute spot. I was very grateful and thankful to the promoters, and 6 months later they flew me down and put me up at a hotel to do those same venues. And that would not have happened if I'd turned up going, fucking you guys, you suck. You know? So it never stops. Everyone always feels like they should be doing better. You don't do this unless you watch people on TV and go, fuck, I reckon I'm better than that. So you have to have a huge ego, but that ego has to be broken down. Die. It has to die. And you have to be filled with just joy and gratitude for the opportunity to perform eventually. Otherwise, you'll go to the dark side of the force.
Can I say one more thing? Here's something that's just coming to my mind. It was, when you are going to open mics, please go and say hello to the MC. It's astounding the amount of people that don't even come and say hello. And then you're up next and I'm like, well, who is this person? I haven't even seen their face. It's just frustrating. And I get it that you could be a bit nervous or something, but you want to go up because they're the people that will be able to give you feedback if you're just like a bit...
Best thing ever happened to me one night. This guy, obviously not the best thing that ever happened to me, but like a really instructive thing that happened to me. This young guy is pretty funny. Just one night he said, look, I'm autistic. I won't look you in the eye, but I'm keen for a chat. And I just went, oh, okay. Right, so you're not up yourself, you know, like you don't have to, you don't have to be... Most of us aren't going to be super socially fucking together and awesome. Just sort of make yourself known for who you are around the circle, and just like you're going to be embarrassed, like you're going to fail. Like this is the great thing about stand-up comedy is failure is guaranteed.
And good for you.
And essential.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
I've got to go.
Okay, we're running out of time. So what I'll
Got to go to the toilet.
and we're people of a certain age, so you have to go.
Gotta go to the toilet.
Got to go now. Go to the bathroom. Any
Yeah,
last
Will.
comments?
Oh, right. Okay. Any other
you
questions?
can go.
Any other questions? Any other comments? I'll think of it while I'm in the toilet.
Okay.
I'm not sitting there and paying.
No, that's fair enough. Bron, any last comment? Anything? A word of wisdom? I don't know. Anything?
I think it's listening, asking questions and listening. Listening to their answers. It's treating it like a job. I remember someone saying this to me a long time ago. If you want this to be your job, you got to treat it like a job. So you wouldn't turn up to your job drunk, and you wouldn't turn up to your job looking like shit, and you wouldn't say, well, you probably say heaps of fuck things on stage, but I mean, you don't talk shit about someone and don't expect it to get back to them. It's a really, really tiny circle, especially here in Brizzy. So if you're like, why is she getting spots? She's shit. Like, I'm way better than her. And then you're really playing with fire there. And if it gets back to her, she will feel horrible, but also everyone now sees you as an asshole, and they won't want to work with you. So it's about treating it like a job, I reckon.
Yeah, comedians are like people who walk around with huge swords and absolutely no armour. We will say horrible shit about other people and be appalled and astonished that other people say horrible shit about us, and not be able to cope with it at all. And the more extreme and edgy your comic is, the more guaranteed, the more fucking fragile their ego is. So, like, I've gone my whole career trying desperately to not cause conflicts with people, and there are people who fucking hate me.
It's just part of the world. One thing I'd like to say, in the context of a job, like doing comedy as a job, or getting into the comedy industry, make sure you have something outside of comedy. Some people immerse themselves so deeply into it that they've got nothing else. And the biggest, like, in the context of work, as a comedian, sometimes you might only have 3 hours on stage in a week, or you might have 5 hours. The trick is having things for those other hours. Free time is very dangerous for a comedian.
Yeah, paint.
Do something
Draw.
else. Have something else in your life.
Write short stories. No, seriously,
No,
another
being serious.
Get on
creative
the
thing,
pole.
like pottery, whatever.
Have something else. Because what happens is, if you don't have something else, that's when the bitterness starts to come in, when comics go, well, why does that person have that gig? Or this person has that gig, and why aren't I getting that gig? That's what happens when you have too much free time. If you're so busy doing other stuff, it makes you it makes your comedy better. Like, I've found when I'm at my busiest, I get the most work done. When I've got free time, everything slows down.
Yeah. So take meth, get a really big meth habit, and you'll never be not busy again.
Just one other question. Okay, I've got to check my phone. Okay. This is probably telling me to get off stage.
Beg your pardon?
What are the statistics of making, like, I don't want a career in comedy, I just want to make people laugh, like a lot of us. A lot of us just want to make people laugh. We just want to do it for fun or a sideline or whatever. But what's the statistics? A lot of you have come from Sit Down Comedy Club or Australia's Got Talent or whatever. What are the statistics of making this a full-time career in Australia?
Slim.
Slim. For every broken
Like,
down
really?
old comic that you don't
many have come and
respect,
gone?
just try and picture the thousands of people who tried to do comedy during their career behind them, like the ghost army from The Lord of the Rings. Because that's what I am. There are thousands of failed comics behind me. I've never had a real job. I used to make quite a good living. I used to make so much money that I would describe myself as comfortable. But drugs don't buy themselves. So I have no money currently.
It is slim, but sorry, let me just back that up. It is slim, but anyone that has ever wanted to do it and like has that burning passion just goes, fuck it. whatever it takes, I'm going to make this happen, and commits and puts the time in and sucks up the, oh, this is hard and all the rest, makes it. And they're still around.
You would be amazed
Really?
by the non-famous comedians who make quite a good living.
Yeah.
You would be amazed.
Exceptional living.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some non-famous comedians who are doing
Who are massive in
tip
corporate-
tip top.
Yeah. So we got to wind up there. Thank you for everyone for coming. Now, if you've got any questions or anything, you can direct them to our Facebook or Instagram. The other thing too, Megan in our office has done a fantastic booklet that's on all our open mic stuff that has, I think it's like 16 to 18 pages of just information. So have a look at that, because there are a lot of answers to questions and things there. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Now, and the other thing too is next week we're going to have another Q&A about hosting shows. So don't be afraid, come along. Looking forward to it. Thank you and good night. I'd also like to thank Bron, Greg and Fiona. I'm so slack. And Alex for filming, Meg for doing the computer stuff, Tom for doing sound, the bar staff that didn't get much to do. But thank you very much. Cheers. Such a slack MC.